Have you ever walked away from a conversation and suddenly started thinking about everything you said? Not because anything bad happened, but because your mind keeps searching for something that might have. Maybe it was the way someone responded. Maybe their tone sounded slightly different. Maybe they replied a little too fast or too slow. And somehow, your brain turns that tiny moment into a question. Did I sound weird? Did I talk too much? Do they see me differently now? Sometimes it happens instantly. You're still in the conversation, but part of your mind is already analyzing yourself while you speak. You become aware of your voice, your expressions, your eye contact, your timing, and suddenly, something natural starts feeling forced. Even small things can stay in your head for hours. A joke that didn't land perfectly, an awkward silence, waving at someone who didn't see you. And for some reason, your brain treats these moments like they matter far more than they actually do. Sometimes it even changes how you act around people. You become quieter in certain groups, more careful with your words. You start filtering parts of your personality without realizing it. Not because you're pretending to be someone else, but because part of you is trying to avoid saying the wrong thing. Avoid being judged. Avoid feeling embarrassed later. And after a while, social interaction stops feeling simple because your mind never fully relaxes inside it. The strange thing is, most people don't consciously decide to care what others think. It happens automatically because humans naturally pay attention to social feedback. The brain is constantly reading people, facial expressions, tone changes, body language, silence, and most of the time, you don't even notice yourself doing it. Your brain is always trying to answer one question: how am I being perceived right now? Because socially, perception matters. Humans want acceptance, connection, belonging. So when something feels uncertain socially, the brain starts searching for answers. That's why small interactions can feel mentally loud, especially when there's no clear conclusion, no reassurance, no certainty. Your mind keeps trying to solve the interaction afterward. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because uncertainty is uncomfortable for the brain, especially social uncertainty. And over time, some people become more sensitive to it than others. They start noticing tiny shifts, shorter replies, different energy, small reactions, pauses in conversation, even when those things may not mean anything at all. But eventually, something deeper starts happening. You stop just interacting with people and start managing yourself around them. You begin creating a version of yourself that feels socially safer. Maybe you become more agreeable. Maybe you laugh even when something isn't funny. Maybe you avoid saying certain things because you're already imagining how people might react. And after a while, your personality starts feeling edited, not fake, just filtered. Because your brain is constantly asking, is this okay to say? Will this make me look weird? What version of me is most acceptable right now? And that constant self-monitoring becomes exhausting, especially because nobody else can actually see how much thinking is happening internally. To everyone else, you probably seem normal, but inside your head, every interaction feels like something being reviewed in real time. And the harder you try to control how you're perceived, the less natural you start to feel. That's why overthinkers often leave social situations feeling drained. Not because talking to people is always exhausting, but because monitoring yourself constantly is exhausting. But here's the part most people don't realize. The version of you that exists in your mind is usually far harsher than the version people actually see. Most people are not analyzing you with the same intensity that you analyze yourself, because they're busy living inside their own minds too, thinking about how they sounded, what they should have said, whether they looked awkward. Everyone is carrying their own internal world, their own insecurities, their own overthinking. And once you start realizing this, something changes. You stop trying to perfectly manage every interaction. You stop trying to control every impression. You stop treating every social moment like a final judgment of who you are. And slowly, you begin feeling more present, not because the thoughts disappear completely, but because you stop giving every thought authority. You stop assuming every uncomfortable feeling means something is wrong. Sometimes, a moment is just a moment, not a reflection of your worth, not proof that people dislike you, not something your mind needs to replay forever. Maybe the goal was never to become completely fearless socially. Maybe it was never about saying everything perfectly, or making sure nobody ever misunderstands you. Because no matter how carefully you manage yourself, you can never fully control what exists in someone else's mind. And trying to control it constantly becomes exhausting. Maybe that's why overthinking feels so heavy sometimes. Because part of you is always trying to stay one step ahead of judgment, trying to predict reactions, trying to avoid embarrassment, trying to make sure you're accepted. But eventually, you realize something important. You don't actually feel closer to people when you constantly monitor yourself around them. You just feel further away from yourself. And maybe confidence isn't about never feeling awkward. Maybe it's about no longer treating awkward moments like proof that something is wrong with you. Because being human is awkward sometimes. Conversations are imperfect, people misunderstand things, moments pass strangely, and that's normal. Not every silence means rejection. Not every interaction needs to be replayed. Not every thought deserves your attention. Sometimes, peace begins when you stop performing for people and allow yourself to simply exist as you are.